Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we revisit the story of a young woman who changed music forever. When you hear her name, you think of love songs, glittering stage outfits, and a smile that lit up the world. But behind that smile was struggle. Behind her rise was resistance. And behind her death was a chilling reminder that the music industry plays by rules the public rarely sees. This isn't just Selena's story. It's the story of a family fighting poverty, a father chasing redemption, and a daughter breaking barriers that an entire system worked to protect. This is also about payola, the dirty secret of music pay-to-play, where stations refused to air songs unless they were bribed. It's about gatekeepers who doubted that a Mexican-American woman could ever conquer mainstream American pop. Selena was on her way to proving them wrong. But before she could, her life was cut short in the cruelest way. Tonight, we walk through her story in full. Not just the glitter but the grit. Not just the songs, but the silence the industry wanted to enforce. Selena Quintanilla Perez was born on April 16, 1971, in Lake Jackson, Texas. Her father, Abraham Quintanilla Jr., carried his own scars from the music industry. In the 1960s, his band Los Dinos struggled to find acceptance because they were Mexican-American. When they tried to book gigs in Anglo clubs, they were told they didn't belong. When they tried to book in Mexican-American clubs, they were told they sounded too American. It was rejection from both sides, and Abraham never forgot it. So when he heard his daughter Selena singing at 6 years old, he wasn't just hearing a child's voice. He was hearing a second chance. But building Selena's future wasn't easy. The family lost their restaurant, Papagayos, during a recession. Suddenly broke, the Quintanillas loaded their belongings into an old bus they called Big Bertha. Their new life was the road. Weddings, quinceañeras, state fairs, anywhere a crowd would listen. Selena was singing lead, her sister Suzette was on drums, and her brother AB on bass. But even then, the industry walls were high. Tejano music, a mix of Mexican and American influences, was dominated by men. Male vocalists ruled the airwaves. DJs laughed when Abraham pushed Selena forward. Some even said, "A woman has no place in Tejano." Selena proved them wrong night after night, but the real challenge wasn't just sexism, it was payola. In the 1980s, radio stations didn't just play music because it was good. They played music because they were paid to. If you wanted your record spun, you paid under the table. For an immigrant family barely scraping by, that was impossible. So the Quintanillas fought the system the only way they knew how, by performing, by traveling, and by building Selena's fan base one show at a time. By the mid-1980s, the Quintanilla family had been living on the road for years. They were broke, often sleeping in the bus, sometimes unsure if they'd have gas money to get to the next show. Selena was only a teenager, but she was already seasoned. She knew how to command a crowd, how to draw people in with her smile, and how to pour emotion into every lyric, even when she hadn't lived the love stories she was singing about. But the industry was unkind. Record stores in Texas didn't stock Tejano albums unless the artist had a label deal. Radio stations wanted bribes. And promoters booked the same old male performers over and over, dismissing Selena as too young or just a girl. Abraham refused to accept no. He entered Selena into every contest he could find, pushed her band into every festival lineup, and knocked on the doors of radio stations until someone gave her a chance. The family's sacrifice began to pay off in 1986, when 15-year-old Selena won Female Vocalist of the Year at the Tejano Music Awards. This wasn't just a trophy, it was validation. It was the first moment when the industry insiders had to admit, she's undeniable. But here's the catch. Even after winning, Selena still faced rejection. Winning awards gave her credibility, but not airplay. Not record deals. Not money. This was the first real glimpse of the games the industry played. Awards were symbolic. Real success came from breaking through the politics of radio and label control, and that battle had just begun. By 1989, Selena had built a following large enough to get the attention of record labels. After years of struggle, EMI Latin came calling. On paper, this was the dream come true. A major label deal meant albums, tours, exposure. But behind the curtain, there were cracks. Executives at EMI didn't fully believe in Selena. They debated whether Tejano was even profitable. Some doubted that a Mexican-American woman could ever reach mainstream U.S. audiences. But they signed her anyway, not out of faith, but out of fear. They didn't want her going to a competitor. That's how little respect the industry had for her at first. She wasn't seen as a superstar in the making. She was seen as a pawn in a corporate game. But Selena and her family weren't waiting for validation. They went to work. Her first EMI album introduced her to a larger audience, and slowly, her fanbase grew. By 1990, Ven Conmigo gave her her first gold record. By 1992, Entre a mi mundo exploded, selling 500,000 copies and giving us Como la Flor, the anthem that would forever define her. Meanwhile, her live shows became legendary. Crowds doubled, then tripled. She wasn't just singing, she was electrifying. She danced in glittering jumpsuits she designed herself, moving with the energy of a pop star, but singing with the raw heart of Tejano. And here's what mattered most. Selena wasn't just gaining fans, she was building a movement. Latinos saw her as representation. Young girls saw her as hope. Mexican-American families saw her as proof that they belonged. The label may not have believed in her at first, but the people already had. And in the music business, that kind of organic loyalty is priceless, and dangerous to a system built on payola and gatekeeping. By the early 1990s, Selena wasn't just a singer. She was a phenomenon. Her performances filled venues across Texas, California, and beyond. She wasn't singing to an audience. She was inviting them into her world. Fans felt like they knew her, like she was family. She would stop mid-performance to laugh, to joke, to share stories. And every single time, the crowd loved her more. Then came 1994, the year that made Selena the undisputed queen of Tejano. Her album Amor Prohibido dropped like a thunderclap. It wasn't just a success, it was historic. It became one of the best-selling Latin albums in the United States, going platinum and earning her Grammy nominations. But here's what the industry won't say out loud. Amor Prohibido wasn't supposed to work. The labels still thought Tejano had limits. They still thought a Mexican-American woman could only sell so much. Selena shattered those assumptions. Her songs weren't just about love. They were about struggle, about forbidden passion, about pain people understood deeply. And her delivery made it feel like she was singing directly to you, whether you were at a packed concert or listening alone in your bedroom. At the same time, Selena was building her empire beyond music. She launched Selena Etc., a boutique line of fashion stores where she sold the clothes she designed and wore on stage. It wasn't just business, it was proof that Selena was a brand, an icon, and a visionary. But behind the success, tension was brewing. Selena had her eyes on the ultimate prize, the English crossover. She wanted to take her music to the mainstream US charts. And here's where things got complicated. The American music industry wasn't ready. Latin artists weren't given equal footing. They were kept in separate categories, praised in Latin award shows but rarely given the stage at the Grammys or on Billboard's pop charts. Selena was about to break that wall. She was recording Dreaming of You, her English crossover album. And if it succeeded, it would prove once and for all that a Mexican-American woman could dominate pop the same way Whitney Houston, Madonna, and Mariah Carey did. For the first time, the industry began to realize the truth. Selena wasn't just the queen of Tejano. She was a threat to the established order of American pop music. By the early 1990s, Selena was no longer just a singer from Lake Jackson, Texas. She had become the face of Tejano music, the one who brought a regional, male-dominated genre into the national spotlight. But what set her apart wasn't just her sound. It was her presence, her warmth, her ability to make thousands of fans feel like she was singing directly to them. In 1993, she released Live, an album recorded in front of an ecstatic crowd. It won the Grammy for Best Mexican-American Album, the moment the mainstream US industry could no longer ignore her. Yet behind the applause was a reminder of the payola system still at play. Radio executives who once doubted her now rushed to claim they had always supported her. Labels who ignored her suddenly wanted to attach themselves to her shine. Selena didn't just make hits, she created moments. In 1995, Her Astrodome concert drew over 66,000 fans. She walked out in her iconic purple jumpsuit, commanding a stadium with the energy of a rock star, the charm of a pop idol, and the authenticity of a barrio girl who never forgot where she came from. That night, she didn't just perform. She announced herself as larger than Tejano, larger than genre, larger than industry boxes. But Selena's artistry wasn't confined to music. She launched Selena Etc., her boutiques in Texas, where she designed bold, glittering outfits that reflected both Mexican tradition and American pop flash. She gave jobs to her community, invested back into her fans, and dreamed of building an empire where music and fashion walked side by side. She was not just an artist, she was a young entrepreneur, carving her independence in an industry that preferred stars to remain dependent. As Amor Prohibido climbed charts in 1994, Selena's crossover dreams became real. EMI finally greenlit her English-language album. And Selena, with her perfect bilingual fluency, her girl-next-door charm, and her superstar glow, was poised to do what very few Latinas had ever done: crack the American pop mainstream on her own terms. And here's where the tension deepened. Record executives, promoters, and gatekeepers had always been comfortable keeping Tejano as a niche market, something profitable but contained. Selena threatened to break that ceiling. She wasn't just a singer anymore. She was a symbol, a bridge between cultures, a rising queen with crossover potential that could rival Madonna, Whitney, and Janet. For her fans, this was destiny. For the industry, this was risk. Because once an artist shows they can be bigger than the system designed to control them, the system starts watching. And sometimes, it pushes back. While Selena was scaling new heights in music and fashion, a darker story was unfolding in the background, one that would eventually end everything. Enter Yolanda Saldivar. At first, she appeared to be nothing more than a devoted fan. She showered Selena with admiration, writing letters, making calls, and begging to start a fan club in her honor. For a young artist trying to keep close ties to her audience, it seemed harmless. In fact, Selena agreed, and Yolanda quickly rose from obsessive fan to fan club president. But Yolanda wasn't satisfied with being a fan. She wanted proximity. She wanted power. Soon, she embedded herself in Selena's personal and professional world. By the mid-1990s, Yolanda wasn't just running a fan club. She was also managing Selena's boutiques, handling finances, and acting as a gatekeeper to the star herself. At first, the arrangement seemed to work. The fan club grew, the boutiques expanded, and Yolanda was in constant orbit around her idol. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Employees began complaining about her behavior. Customers reported missing payments, unfulfilled orders, and shady bookkeeping. Rumors began swirling. Money was disappearing. Selena, who trusted deeply and hated conflict, tried to smooth things over. She saw Yolanda as loyal, almost family. But her father, Abraham, wasn't fooled. He began investigating the books, and what he found alarmed him. Tens of thousands of dollars missing from both the fan club and the boutiques. Here lies the cruel irony. Selena was on the brink of her crossover success, but behind the scenes, her empire was being hollowed out by someone she had trusted. Abraham demanded Yolanda be fired, but Selena hesitated. She wanted to believe the best in people. She wanted to avoid drama that might distract from her music and her fans. The tension escalated. Yolanda grew more possessive, more unstable. She began isolating Selena, claiming she was the only one who truly cared about her. Employees warned Selena to be careful, but Selena's compassion blinded her to the danger. By early 1995, it came to a head. Selena and her family confronted Yolanda about the missing money. Documents showed checks forged, funds misused, fans cheated. Selena finally cut ties, but Yolanda wasn't willing to let go. She cried, begged, threatened, and manipulated her way into getting one last meeting. This was the fatal turning point. Selena wanted to close the books, retrieve key financial records, and move forward with her career. She saw it as business. Yolanda saw it as betrayal. And betrayal, in her twisted mind, demanded retribution. It was the morning of March 31st, 1995. Selena Quintanilla Perez was 23 years old, at the height of her career, preparing for her crossover into the English language market. She should have been in the studio, rehearsing, dreaming. Instead, she drove to a Days Inn motel in Corpus Christi to meet a woman she should have cut out of her life weeks before, Yolanda Saldivar. Selena went there for one reason: to retrieve financial documents Yolanda was withholding. She needed them for tax season, for her boutiques, for her future. She wanted closure. But closure wasn't what Yolanda had in mind. Inside that motel room, the confrontation turned heated. Selena demanded the papers. Yolanda deflected, then shifted into manipulation, claiming she had been raped, spinning lies to hold on to Selena's sympathy. But Selena, now firm, pressed harder. She was ready to walk away for good. That was when Yolanda reached for the .38 caliber revolver she had purchased just weeks before. With a single shot, she struck Selena in the lower right shoulder. But here's what shows the true measure of Selena's spirit. She did not collapse in silence. Bleeding, she fought her way out of the room, sprinted across the motel courtyard, leaving a trail of blood nearly 400 feet long. With her last strength, she named her killer, Yolanda, Room 158. Those words ensured there would be no mystery, no cover-up. Selena, even in her final breath, told the truth. She collapsed at the lobby desk. Despite desperate attempts to save her, the bullet had severed a major artery. At 1:05 p.m., Selena Quintanilla was pronounced dead. The world stopped. News spread like wildfire. Fans gathered outside hospitals, crying in disbelief. Radio stations switched to non-stop Selena tributes. In Texas, in Mexico, across Latino communities everywhere, it felt like a family member had been taken. And then came the industry response. Within hours, her label began preparing memorial releases. Within days, stores sold out of her albums. Sales skyrocketed. Her death, tragic as it was, became commodified. This is the game the music industry has always played. When an artist lives, they are a negotiation. When they die, they are profit. But beneath the grief was an uncomfortable question. Why? Why did Yolanda, a woman so close to Selena, turn so violently against her? Why did the system allow someone with so much access to remain in her life despite warnings? And deeper still, why does it always seem that when artists challenge the industry, when they begin to claim independence, to break borders, their lives are cut short? Selena was poised to cross over, to become not just a Latina icon, but a global superstar who would rewrite what success looked like. And in that moment of transformation, she was erased. Her death wasn't just the loss of a singer. It was the silencing of possibility. A reminder that the music industry, with its payola, its politics, and its power games, decides who rises, and sometimes who falls. Selena Quintanilla Perez was gone, but her voice refused to be silenced. Within weeks of her death, EMI Latin released her unfinished English crossover album, Dreaming of You. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, making her the first Latin artist ever to achieve that milestone. For the world, it was a stunning revelation. A young woman from South Texas, who had been fighting an industry built to limit her, had finally broken through. Her death made the music industry pay attention, but only partially. Labels profited, radio stations spun tributes, and merchandise flew off shelves. Yet, for all the posthumous praise, the deeper lessons of her rise and fall were mostly ignored. Selena's story revealed the payola, gatekeeping, and bias that had tried to contain her. It showed how the industry often protects profit over talent, and how artists of color must fight twice as hard for the recognition they deserve. Beyond charts and sales, Selena became a cultural icon. She inspired generations of Latinos to pursue music, fashion, and entrepreneurship. Her boutiques, her self-designed stage outfits, her bold purple jumpsuit at the Astrodome, all of it became symbols of pride, individuality, and resilience. She proved that Mexican-American identity could shine on a global stage without compromise. Her fans carried her legacy forward. Memorials, tribute concerts, and movies introduced her to audiences who had never known her life firsthand. Her story reminded people that authenticity, love, and talent can break barriers that money and politics often try to enforce. And perhaps most importantly, Selena's life remains a warning. The industry game she faced, the payola, the sexism, the narrow boxes set for Latin artists, are real. They still exist today. Yet her story also shows what happens when you rise despite the obstacles. The audience sees the truth, the culture remembers, and the legend endures. Selena's legacy is not just in her music. It's in the possibilities she embodied, the barriers she shattered, and the inspiration she continues to give. She was taken far too soon, but her light never faded. Selena lives forever, in every note, every fan, and every story that dares to challenge the system and celebrate authentic talent. So when you remember Selena, don't just remember the Queen of Tejano. Remember the young girl on the bus with her family, fighting to be heard. Remember the father who wouldn't accept rejection a second time. Remember the fans who carried her higher than Paola ever could. And remember that behind every song, there are forces, good and bad, that shape what the world hears. Selena's voice was pure. Selena's rise was authentic. And Selena's loss reminds us, the music industry's games are real. But so are the legends powerful enough to outlast them. Selena lives forever.